With our trim and background layers fully decorated, it's time to add in our hero element, using the Boo Crew digital decorations. Not only will we be adding in the Boo Crew ghosts, but we will also be doing some simple animating for that asset. Let's dive right into this one, and open our top layer in the Fusion page. Remember that this is for assets that we want to place on top of everything else, so we will be adding our ghosts here. Let's enable the map file so we have a general idea of where these assets will be placed. Just like we've been doing, let's choose a tree limb to connect the asset to. Then add a merge. Bring down the media asset. Add a transform node. And connect everything together. For placement, let's ensure that when these two ghosts are centered on the screen, they are also centered on the right side surface of the map file. Next, let's remove the black backgrounds using the Luma keyer, and add our drop shadows, just like we did for scene 1. Because we've covered this previously, let's skip forward a bit to where that has been completed. Now that our ghosts have been separated from the background, let's begin working on some details for this scene. Here, I am using the Flying Blind video from the Boo Crew collection. A nice detail for this video would be if the ghost was bumping into actual objects in the scene. Let's go over how we can make that happen, using some simple animation and keyframing techniques. First, let's determine which side we want the smaller ghost to enter on. There really is no wrong answer here. For demonstration purposes, let's reverse this video so he comes in from the left side. With the transform node selected, choose this flip icon in the inspector. This will completely reverse the video, with the small ghost entering on the left, and the big ghost entering on the right. Now let's do some simple keyframing. This won't be too difficult. All we're going to do is move this video asset around as needed, to better tell the story within our scene. At this point here, it would be good if this ghost was bumping into an object. In order to determine where this will happen, we need to find the animation frame in the media asset that looks as though the ghost has run into something. Frame 139 appears to be the winner. With the transform node selected on frame 139, I'm going to add a keyframe by clicking on this diamond icon. Any property with this icon can be keyframed to change it from one value to another over a period of time. Here we will be animating the position of the video asset, but there is so much more that we can do with keyframing when building shows. Let's move this ghost into a better position. But we will stay on the same frame number so that we don't animate the movement just yet. Next, we will add in an object for the ghost to bump into. Let's make sure the ghost is layered on top of the object, by moving it along the limb, and closer to the trunk. Now as usual, we will add a merge, add the media, and add a transform node. In this example, we will throw in a suit of armor for the ghost to bump into. Size and position so that it appears the ghost ran into it. To add to the scene, we can also add a shadow node to this asset, to cast a shadow against the wall. If you need to review the shadow node, re-watch the videos from when we created the first scene. With the armor added, we can scan through and see what the next animation for this video needs to be. Here we can see the ghost is bumping into a ceiling. Again, let's find the exact frame where the head bumps, then using the transform node, we can move the center position up to the top so it appears the ghost bumps its head correctly. Notice that when we move the transform node, and we are on a different frame number, a new keyframe is automatically set. Once keyframing has been activated, Resolve will automatically add new keyframes whenever a change is made on a different frame number, and it will animate the changes on its own between each keyframe. There will be times we need to manually set these, of course, and we will see an example of that shortly. Now we need to get the ghost back down to ground level. Let's find the frame where the ghost appears to be back at ground level, and use the transform node to bring it back down to the floor. Finally, let's make it appear as though it bumped into the wall on the left. Again, find the frame where it appears to collide, and line it up as best you can with the wall. Let's review what we have so far. That doesn't look too bad. It could be a little smoother, and I'll show you a trick on how to do that down the road. For the next animation, we will need to bring both ghosts back to the center. In order to do that, we will need to slide this over to the left to allow the bigger ghost to appear, but we also have to be careful to not let the smaller ghost go out of view when we move it. Let's pick this frame where the bigger ghost looks at the camera, and move this over to the left until he is visible in the scene, and be careful to keep the small ghost visible. This worked out just fine, but there will be times that you may have to add more keyframes to keep everything in the scene. Sometimes it's easy like in this situation. And sometimes you're going to have to carefully go through and add movements using the transform node to make things work out. Since this is okay, we will move forward for the last bit of fine-tuning. Let's make it so the ghosts evaporate before hitting the wall, just like we did in scene 1. Just as we did in that first scene, let's add an ellipse mask and connect it to the merge node. Place it into the correct position, and use the soft edge slider to blur the edges. Now for the tricky part. We want this mask in this position when our scene ends, and something close to it in the beginning as well. But in the middle of the video, when the ghost bumps into the wall, we want this to be out of the way. Using the inspector, add a keyframe to the position values of the ellipse mask. Let's scroll back a bit to ensure the placement of this mask doesn't interfere with the scene until they are ready to leave. If it does, we will need to adjust it. At this point here, it's going to be an issue, so let's move it out of the way. Scroll forward a bit to the point that the mask isn't interfering. Then set a new keyframe. Now for one of my favorite tricks, we will make this ellipse mask jump out of the way so the ghost can run into the wall. All we have to do is go back one frame and move its position. If we scan through, we can see that this ellipse mask will jump over to the far left to be out of the way. When doing this, be sure to scrub through and verify that it's not getting in the way of the scene. Here there are some new issues that need to be dealt with since it's now cutting off the right-hand side. This can easily be fixed by adjusting the soft edge slider and increasing the size of the mask. Note that because we did not set keyframes for those properties, they will not change at all. This larger size will apply for the entire scene. If needed, you can navigate between your keyframes by clicking on the arrows that surround the keyframe icon. Let's head back to the beginning of the clip and move this ellipse back over to the right so that the ghost materializes at the beginning. Again, validate that it's not getting in the way of the scene. If it does, make adjustments as needed to keep it from removing the characters. Since we set a keyframe in the middle, the ellipse mask will now slowly move over to the left once the scene has started. As long as it remains out of the way, we won't need to add another keyframe. That's pretty decent, so I think we will pause here for now. In the next video in this series, we will do some refining on the animations in addition to adding extra details into the scene to complete it. Until then, I hope your project is going well, and I look forward to your return.